We normally visit with our next guest on Mondays, but we bumped it over to Tuesday, and good thing we did because we had a big announcement yesterday from Marco Rubio, a lot of campaign news that is out there, and joining us right now to talk about all of that, GOP political strategist, co-founder of MustReadTexas.com, Matt Mackowiak. Matt, good morning. How are you?
Jack, I'm doing great. How about you?
Doing all right. Let's talk about Marco Rubio. Big announcement yesterday. I thought he had a great speech. What were your initial thoughts, and how do you think Marco Rubio fits in to the Republican picture in 2016?
Yeah, I mean, you judge these events by the Cruz and Rand Paul announcements, which were both large events, well stage managed. The Rand Paul event had a number of speakers. And the Rubio event was a little bit more streamlined. It was a little bit more simple. It was introduced right away, not by an individual, but just over the loudspeaker, and then gave a 12-minute, speech or so, and that was it. But in terms of the speech itself, I thought it was excellent. He's a really remarkable speaker. He's able to really talk about his background and our country in a way that makes you proud to be an American. And, he's a very positive and optimistic person. And I think he really benefited from the juxtaposition of his announcement and Hillary's within 24 hours. I think the contrast between the two of them couldn't have been sharper. He really looks like the future, generationally, demographically, whereas I think Hillary, has been in public life for, 22, 23 years now at the national level. And it's hard to look at Hillary Clinton and think she's the future. And so I think that contrast between Rubio and Hillary was very advantageous for Rubio yesterday.
You're not the only one who said that, he's the future and that he's looked at as a leader of the future. Is that future now, you think, for Marco Rubio?
It's a good question. I mean, look, I think he definitely has a chance to be the nominee. I think he's probably in the first tier of candidates. He has all the, right, strengths, I think. He is very intelligent, understands issues very well, solid conservative. Obviously, he has some problems with the base on immigration. But I think he's worked to mollify a lot of those concerns, really backed away from his own bill, admitted he made a mistake, admitted he's learned from it. The only thing that really concerns me about him is that, I just don't know if he has a path for nomination through the early states. I can look at Ted Cruz or Rand Paul or Scott Walker, and I can see, states they'll do well in and how they can build momentum and survive through February. But, if you look at Rubio, I don't know that he's going to be strong in Iowa. I don't know that he's going to be strong in New Hampshire. It looks like they're going to place a big bet in South Carolina. They're going to have a lot of their team is from there, and I think they think he can be strong in South Carolina. But at the end of the day, you got to win probably one of the first four states. You have to certainly perform well and overcome expectations in one or two of those in order to be able to still be a viable candidate in March when the bigger states come around. So that path to nomination is the biggest question I think that remains for Rubio. But look, he's a first-term United States senator, just like Rand Paul, just like Ted Cruz. And there'll be questions about not having executive experience, and, questions of whether he's ready. And obviously also he's not maximizing Florida as a base because Jeb Bush has a solid base there and has more support in Florida than Rubio does. I saw something yesterday that Jeb and Rubio both had fundraising events in Tallahassee, in the state capital city in Florida in the past few weeks. Jeb had 350 people there, and Marco had 20. And I think that's probably somewhat representative of how Florida is breaking down between those two candidates. But look, it remains to be seen. I think Rubio will do very well in the debates. I think he's a very impressive candidate. And I think as a Republican, as a conservative, I think we could do a lot worse for our nominee than Marco Rubio.
visiting with Matt Mackowiak, GOP political strategist, co-founder of BuzzStreetTexas.com. Let's take a look at Hillary Clinton. She made her big announcement, and then she got in a van, is driving towards Iowa and has events in Iowa today. So far, no media interaction that I've seen at all from the Hillary camp to the media, and that's by design, I'm sure. What do you think about her entire rollout? Is this the way that she needs to go? I mean, as far as trying to appeal to those who say that she thinks she already has this in the bag, and then that she doesn't need to really do much. I mean, she's I guess attempting to act as though she's not taking this whole thing for granted.
That's right. I mean, and keep in mind, there's so much artifice here. So much of this is about optics and about fooling people. It's hard to take a lot of it seriously, but on terms of Sunday, to put a video out and not do something bigger than that, maybe Hillary doesn't need that because she's very well known. But to think about these big events that Cruz and Paul and then Rubio later on Monday we're all doing, to compare that to an email her campaign chairman put out first, and then this video that is so cookie cutter and says absolutely nothing of substance. To me, I thought it was a little bit insulting, and to do it on a Sunday afternoon when you sort of make a number of political reporters wait around. So I thought that was kind of lame. This whole thing of her getting in a van and driving to Iowa. Well, it turns out she did the exact same thing in 2000 in New York when she ran for the United States Senate. I mean, literally, they got a van and they called it. They apparently called it something with Scooby Doo, like they are now. So this idea that she dreamed this up herself and decided that to do it is obviously phony. So we'll see. She's going to do a month's worth of small events in small towns with local media only, a so-called listening tour. She wants to avoid having to answer tough questions. But at some point, she's going to have to answer questions about her record as Secretary of State, questions about this email scandal. She's going to have to testify in front of the Benghazi Select Committee. So, she can kind of, play hide and seek for a little while here, but at some point it's going to have to get serious again in the next, 4 to 6 weeks.
Let's take a look at what's happening down in Austin. It's sort of that time in the legislature where you start seeing a lot of headlines that pop up. Okay, this bill, it's not going to be heard. This bill's doomed. That bill is doomed because they're simply running out of time down in Austin. The Texas Senate, the Texas House, how are those two moving? Are they moving as quickly as they have in the past, or are they running a little bit slower?
I think the session, the first half of the session was slower than we've seen in the past decade. I think that part of that is you have a lot of freshmen in both houses. You have some new chairs. You obviously have a new lieutenant governor and also a new governor. The governor did a fairly late state address and had his emergency items identified fairly late in the process. But I think they've been, making good progress since then. Look, they remain far apart on the budget, particularly as it relates to spending on border security, and they remain very far apart on the approach for tax cuts. And I think those are the two big ticket items that have to get resolved between now and the end of the session. In addition to that, there's a list of 5 or 8 other things, primarily things the Senate has passed that the House has not yet passed, and it's not clear if they will. Obviously things like campus carry. The Senate, I think, is considering open carry either today or this week. School choice or vouchers, pass the Senate, or I guess will pass the Senate, and that's now going to be a question for the House. So there's a list of issues like that, and then you also have some sort of free market issues. This Tesla bill, the Walmart bill. And then there's some local control issues regarding oil and gas and fracking, and a couple other industries that want statewide preemption. So there's, on the big items, there still seems a little bit far apart, and then there's this other list of 5 or 8 or 10 things that it's unclear if the House is going to basically pass the Senate bills on them. So yeah, we don't have a ton of time left. I think it's 30 or 35 days left at this point, and you are getting to the point now where things are going to die simply because of time.
Where are we on the list of emergency items, or the priority items that Governor Abbott threw out there? And do you think he's one who will call lawmakers back if they don't get to everything? Will he call them back?
It's a good question. He said that he has, demanded a business tax cut, a cut to the franchise tax. That has not passed both houses yet. I guess the same version hasn't passed both houses yet. Ethics bill has not passed yet. He's definitely requested that. I think he would probably call a special session on business tax cuts. I don't know if he will on ethics. He did get transportation done. He did get, I believe, education done. So, yeah, I mean, he's about halfway, I would say, in his emergency items. I don't think anybody wants a special session. There's an expectation they'll have to come back next year, in the first or second quarter of next year, once the ruling comes down on school finance. So we'll see. I mean, they're going to have to find a middle path on tax cuts. I mean, the Dan Patrick bill, wants to address his property taxes in addition to business taxes, while the House bill addresses sales taxes in addition to business taxes. So it's a sales tax versus property tax approach difference right now, and that's got to get resolved.
Matt Mackowiak, mustreadtexas.com. Tell folks real quick what they can find on your website today.
Yeah, all the top news from around the state. A lot of news about Cruz and Perry at mustreadtexas.com. Top opinion and top blog items from all over state of Texas and nationally. Mustreadtexas.com.
All right, Matt, as always, thank you very much. We'll visit with you again next week.
Sounds good, Chad. Have a great week. Take care.
You too. That's Matt Mackowiak. Follow him on Twitter at Matt Mackowiak.